gradually open your eyes. Thank you. So today I'll talk on this topic of karma and relationships. I'll be writing and drawing some things over here. So before I start, I would like to ask you, what do you think the word karma means to you, especially in terms of how it might have a bearing on relationships? But broadly, what does karma mean? And additionally, if you would like to talk about how it may relate with our relationships. Any thoughts? How many of you have heard the word karma? All of us probably have heard of it. So what does it mean to you?
Duty.
Karma can refer to duties. There are certain things that we are expected to do, and those can be said to be our karma. Yes, thank you. Anything else?
The result of our actions.
The result of our actions. Yes. We do certain actions, and then we get the results. So karma is a multivalent word. It has many different meanings. And in English, run is the word which has the maximum meanings. It has some 540 meanings. You say, I'm going for a run. I'm running because my car has stopped running. Because this person is running for president, I'm running away from this country. So you can have different meanings for the same word. So like that, the word karma itself is multivalent. So karma is the word which comes from the Indian language Sanskrit. And in English, karma, run is the only word that has more than 500 meanings. In Sanskrit, there are more than 500 words which have more than 500 meanings. So you try to look at these. So karma can refer to the action that we do. We also refer to the reaction that we get. Like somebody might have some natural talent. They say it's in my karma. So we use the word karma in that sense also. Any other senses of the word karma? Yes, please.
So it can also mean like what action or equal and opposite reaction to the work that we do. So reaction to the work.
So how is that different from reaction of actions?
It is like results of actions. I'm telling like
Okay, what is in regard now? There's a principle. The principle that action has reaction. Like we use the law of karma, where what we do, what goes around, comes around. As we sow, so shall we reap. So that is an implicit acceptance of the idea of karma. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So, any thoughts about how karma might relate with relationships? Okay. Thank you. So, I'll talk in three broad parts today, and the talk will be based on my acronym APT, ACT. So how can we act in ways that are apt in our particular situations? So the first A is accept. We are all born in particular situations, in a particular country, particular family. We are also born with a particular set of genes which determine our IQ, which determine our appearance to some extent. So for all of us, if we consider when we are born, there is a certain situation or a certain broader context in which you are born. And the understanding here is that when we look at life, broadly speaking, we want to make sense of life. we humans, we don't just want to survive. Like we are all biological creatures like other creatures. And we all have that need to survive. But there is survival value. Survival value is I need food to eat, I need a place to stay. The survival value. But what we also want is value for survival. That what will make my life meaningful? And one aspect of making life meaningful is to try to make sense of life. What is going on? And one of the fundamental ways in which we make sense of life is by the principle of cause and effect. In developmental psychology, when a baby is newborn, the baby just cries. The baby doesn't know, okay, I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm feeling bad. What is making me feel bad? They don't know also. It's up to the mother to take the baby and put the baby on her bosom and put the baby's mouth on the breast, and when the baby starts, the baby doesn't know what to do over there. But then the baby starts suckling the milk, suckling the breast, getting the milk. Oh, this feels good. So, okay, when I feel bad, when I do that, then I feel good. So basically, the first step in making sense of the world is to start making sense of the cause-effect correlation. That's how it's not just in a child's growth, it's also how science grows. Science operates on the principle that there are relationships between causes and effects. So for 3-4 months ago, I was in London. I had gone to Cambridge to give a talk over there, science and spirituality. So while going by, we passed by the tree that is supposed to be a descendant of the tree under which Newton discovered gravity. So the legend is that the apple fell on his tree. Fell on his tree, no, it fell on his head. So when the apple fell on his head, now Newton could have just said, let's just accident. This happened. But what made this happen for? He asked the question, and that's how he came up with the theory of gravity. So when he saw an effect, he assumed that there must be a cause for this effect. And although Newton had faith, Newton was a theist and he had faith in a divine organizing principle. At that time, he was not looking immediately for that divine divinity as the explanation. What made the apple fall? Or God made the apple fall? That was not his interest. He was looking for more of a rational mechanism. Okay, what made the apple fall? Okay, that is the principle of gravity. Every scientific advancement is based on observing patterns and then discerning some causal principle that is leading to those patterns. So that essentially is cause and effect. So cause and effect is universal in terms of the individual understanding. So for an individual, in terms of a newborn baby, but collectively for us as humanity, if we consider science, we try to make sense of life. And the cause-effect principle is a foundational principle by which we try to make sense. So, when it comes to relationships, when we are born in a particular place, in life there seems to be a combination of patterns and chaos. That when we say, now you come to this university and you try to make some friends. So if you are polite and friendly and helpful, then you may find that others are also polite and friendly and helpful, and you make friends. But sometimes you find that you are polite and still somebody is very cool. To the extent you try to be gentle, nice with them, to the extent they become harsh with you. So what's wrong with you? So like that happens, we decide, okay, something is wrong with this person, and I don't want anything to do with this person. Now, broadly, there are two kinds of people in the world. Some people bring happiness wherever they go, and others bring happiness whenever they go. So, normally, if we want to have friendships, if we want to have relationships, we understand that if I act politely, act helpfully, then I have a fair chance that the other person is also act like that. So, the first aspect of life is that we accept that there is some pattern. Pattern in terms of the cause-effect correlation. But while life does have this idea of cause-effect correlation, there also seems to be a certain level of chaos, or at least chaos to our perception. Or we could say there is order, and there seems to be disorder, or a certain level of arbitrariness. So that arbitrariness can be in terms of when we are all born. To a large extent, our IQ is determined by our genes. Certainly we can study and we can train our minds and we can improve. But a student who has an IQ of 80 is never going to get an IQ of 180. They go from 80 to 90 to 100, somebody can go from 130 to 140, 150. But there is a certain range that we can't change. So in one sense, when we are born, there are a certain set of things that we can understand some patterns within them, and then we can try to utilize those patterns to function effectively. But there are also certain things which we need to accept. So now the cause-effect correlation is foundational. And this principle, when we extend it from beyond nature, in nature we can call it simply as cause and effect. When it comes to the action of conscious beings, we can call it as action and results. In general, we act based on the understanding of there are actions and there are results of the actions. And nobody can live without a fundamental acceptance of this. That my actions matter. Now, of course, we could go towards two distinct extremes in this. See, for all of us, there are times when we do some things expecting or seeking a particular result. You want to space here and so for all of us, we start and function with this understanding that my actions matter. But there are times when we face situations that seem utterly unreasonable. We are very kind and helpful to a person, and that person is not only cold, but that person becomes exploitative. That person abuses our trust. That person abuses us. We trust someone and share some secret of our heart. And what we share in confidence, next day we find it on Facebook. We feel utterly betrayed. So, when this happens, we face a choice. In general, when we face life, we could go towards two different extremes, two opposites. One is that my actions alone matter. Now, I was such a fool to trust this person. And the other extreme is that everything is destined. My actions don't matter at all. Now, we may or may not use the word destiny, but we all have the idea of luck. It's just my bad luck that I happened to be in this situation or this thing happened. So we could go to either of these two extremes. And on one side, we may blame ourselves. We may hold ourselves responsible, which is good, but blaming ourselves is not good. But on the other hand, we can blame another person, we can blame the world. We all experience some loss in life. And whenever we experience loss, there are different ways in addition that started saying we are looking for meaning. We try to make sense of what has happened. So the loss could be a loss of a relationship, loss of trust in a relationship. So I could say that there is the event, and that's how I experience the event. So I may think that I have lost. Okay, I lost this relationship, I lost this opportunity. Now, that is relatively objective. But we could go further and we might say, I am lost. If we have invested a lot in a particular relationship, a particular career pathway, a particular project, and that just gets shattered, what am I to do now? I spent 5 years in this, I spent 10 years in this. I suppose I'm lost. Where am I going? This is a bit more disorienting. It's a bit more damaging. But the most damaging interpretation, when we try to find meaning, it makes sense of things. The most damaging could be, I am a loser. There's something wrong with me. Because of which, I just make mess of things. So, this interpretation, this reading of the situation that we face in our life can be not just damaging but even toxic. This is where somebody can sink into depression, person can have a lot of self-esteem issues, and sometimes people may even do self-harm to the point of becoming suicidal. So what is that? Something we did and then we got a severe, even catastrophic result of it. And it's something, I am a loser. So how we make sense of things can sometimes be sensible and can sometimes be nonsensical. But we tend to make sense of things in different ways. So one is that if my actions alone matter, I might say that, no, I am such a fool, why did I do something like this? So here we can start looking down at ourselves, we can start hating ourselves. There can be self-hatred. The other is that the world hatred. Life is terrible, life stinks. The world is a rotten place. I was in California, I was going for a talk in a university there, and I saw a car bumper, a sticker over there. So the more I get to know people, the more I love my dog. So, the more I get to know people, I find people unreliable, people are untrustworthy. I don't want anything to do. I just want a dog, I can count on my dog. So sometimes you might become cynical. And again, that's not very healthy. So how can we, so when we face reversals, how do we make sense of the reversals? This is where the karma worldview can help us understand that when we are dealing with people, we function in a way that there are certain things in our control, and there are many things that are not in our control. However, those things that are not in our control, you might say that's just the way life is, just accept it, live with it. Yeah, that's fair enough. But how do we understand why is it like this? You know, why did I have to meet this kind of person who disappointed me, who betrayed me, who abandoned me? So that is where there is the bigger picture that is provided to us by the philosophy of karma. In science also, generally, when we are unable to make sense of things, at that time, we don't jump to the conclusion that things don't make sense. Maybe there's a bigger picture that I need to see. So a bigger picture means that, say, I talk about Newtonian physics. For about 200 to 300 years, Newtonian physics was the bedrock of physics. But then as we started exploring the universe and started exploring the movement of objects which were cosmic in size or which were moving at the speed of light, it started seeming as if their behavior doesn't seem to be obeying Newton's laws exactly. Then science had an option. We just abandon Newton's laws as wrong, and then we developed further theories. Now, Einsteinian relativity that explains something at a broader level. Quantum physics explains something at a fundamental level of subatomic particles. I am giving a very bare bones outline of the history of science over here. But the point is that when a particular theory that was making sense no longer makes sense, or we find observations that don't seem to be agreeable with that theory, we could either say, oh, this theory is right and these observations are wrong, that will not lead to growth. Or they say, maybe this whole universe is chaotic and there is no theory at all. And say, okay, maybe there's a bigger picture over it. So science advances by, most of scientific advancement happens at the peripheries of our understanding. But normally, whatever is in the core, that can easily explain. But the peripheries, cosmic bodies and their movement, gravity is not explained very well. Microscopic bodies, their explanation will not didn't come very well. So there are things at the periphery which are not explainable by that existing theory. And that's when we need to expand the theory. So what is this expansion? Similarly, that we can associate with the idea of karma, that for all of us, when we function in life, actions do produce results. But it is not necessarily a one-to-one correspondence in terms of how we deal with others or how we function. Every action leads to a result, but some results may come sooner, some results may come later. Say, so maybe I'm in school, we're school friends. And then maybe 15 years later, we meet again in college or we meet as colleagues in our profession. And then I'm nice to you. But if I find that you are being very cold, why are you being so strange? It could be that although I am nice to you now, maybe when we were in school I was very rude to you. And if you are being cold to me, it's not because you are irrational. It's because you are still scarred by the memory of my being a harsh person in childhood. So basically, sometimes it may happen that, say, we put in, now karma cannot be mathematically measured and calculated, but we can use that as a metaphor for understanding. So sometimes in the relationship, we may invest 100 and what we get back is barely 10. We do a lot for the other person barely warms up to us. Now you could say, it just don't make sense, or it could be that there is something negative coming from the past. So there is minus 90 coming from the past, which is cancelling a major part of the 100 that I'm investing in. And that's why what I get right now is only 10. So now, if we are honest, we will also remember people who were especially nice to us. If we were growing up, some friend was very good to us, maybe some teacher took a liking to us and helped us. So we tend to remember the people who were harsh to us. But there's other reality also. Sometimes we put 10 and we get 100. We do a little, but we get a lot. And that happens because there is something positive from the past that is getting added over here. So karma determines to a large extent the kind of people that we will meet. So by karma I'm talking about the cause effect or action result connection. But the action result is not necessarily instantaneous. It may take time. And this is where the karma philosophy becomes a little more intricate when you start expanding the picture. The picture can go back, say, right now, if I am interacting with you. And you may say, okay, the way I am behaving with you, you should behave with me. That's a normal way of looking at it. But if we start looking at the bigger picture could be our personal history, how we have dealt with each other. The bigger picture could be also the history of our communities. Maybe I belong to a community that has in the past treated you and your community badly. And that's why you have grown up with certain reservations about me. When you start expanding the bigger picture, it could also be related with certain professions. Maybe some people are suspicious about lawyers, some people are suspicious about healthcare providers. Maybe some people are suspicious about money lenders, bankers. So the bigger picture can expand in different ways. And so now I may say that I didn't do anything to you. There's somebody else from the past, somebody from my community. I don't subscribe to their views now. That may be true. But still, when you are behaving not so politely with me, or conversely, if I am not behaving so politely with you, you could just mean that I am being a foolish person, I am being an irrational person. Or, now whether my reason is reasonable, that's a different question. See, everybody has a reason for what they do. Even if the reason does not stand the scrutiny of reason. When the reason does not stand the scrutiny, it's not rational. Everybody has some reason why they do what they do. So we could expand the picture in different ways. So now say if I belong to a community that has say hurt your community in the past. I don't endorse those views. I'm not like that. But you will actually have some reservation, and at that time I may have to put in some hard yards. I may have to work harder than usual to become credible in your eyes, to become trustworthy in your eyes. So we all may have to work through some negative baggage in connecting with someone. And that's why what is the acronym I will talk about? APT. So P is persist. Persist means that when things don't seem to be working out, we don't need to go to the either extreme of I am hopeless or the world is hopeless. People are hopeless. Yes, we are going to a negative phase. And this negative phase, which affects the kind of people we meet, the bigger picture that can help us to detect what is the negative phase. That bigger picture can extend when I am interacting with you, that bigger picture can extend, according to the philosophy of karma, even to previous lives. That is, we, the yoga traditions which have given us the philosophy of karma, tell us that we are at our core spiritual beings. And as spiritual beings, our journey doesn't begin with birth, it doesn't begin with death, it doesn't end with death. Now let's look at this simply as a proposition. We will not go, we will evaluate the merit of the proposition later. But at this point, let's try to, the bigger picture which is helping us to make sense of things. The bigger picture states that there is something which can come from previous lives also. So when we are born in this life, we can say we have a karma baggage. So this is the birth, and this is going to be our death eventually. We have a karma baggage that comes with us. Now, some of us have a carry-on bag, some of us just have a check-in bag. Some people may burden by a lot of baggage, some people may have a little lesser baggage. But all of us have this karma baggage. And now, this karma baggage comes to us in installments. So right at the start of our life journey itself, we get a big installment. The country in which you are born, the family in which you are born, the genes with which you are born, all these substantially shape our life's trajectory. In science, we can always talk about cause-effect principles, but there is always a starting condition. And without the starting condition being considered, how the cause-effect principles can play out, we can't always be sure about it. So the starting condition, that is to a significant extent determined by our karma package. So we all have an installment of karma that comes at the start. And then throughout our lives, some installments of karma keep coming to us. Now, sometimes these installments may be positive, sometimes the installments may be negative. So if we say the installments are positive, what that means is that at such times, we do some small good thing and we get what we consider lucky break. Oh, you know, I applied for a scholarship and it's got scholarship, it changed my life. But it is not just a scholarship, it's a random act. It was some positive karma that unfolding for us. And sometimes I have a friend in America, he was working in a big software company. And in 2020, he decided to start his own small company. And he put his life savings in that. And after he bought the property, he started everything, and then the pandemic came. He just knocked out completely financially. He had to pay the rent, he couldn't earn anything. So now it was just what you might call a bad luck. So for us, we have these karma baggages that keep coming, that karma baggage is there, and some installment from it keeps coming throughout. So when this installment comes, it can come in different ways. I would like 2 words over here, and I'd like to ask you, adversity and atrocity. How many of you have heard these 2 words? Adversity, atrocity. Are they the same or are they different? Okay, how many of you think they're the same thing? How many of you think there's a difference? Okay, how many of you think the difference does not make any difference? Okay. Different. What do you think is the difference? Anyone? Adversity and atrocity. Yeah.
Basically, adversity is some difficult circumstance that we face in our life due to unforeseen reasons. But atrocity is something that is forced upon us and that is too much for us to handle.
It's forced upon us. It's true. Forced by whom?
Anyone, like any other person or the nature or anyone.
Okay, yeah. See, adversity, okay, let's if there is an earthquake or if there is a flood, is a flood adversity or atrocity? Adversity. So if terrorists blow up a dam and then that causes a flood, that's a atrocity. So adversity is generally natural causes. Atrocity has human causes. So when a war occurs, we may say there are war atrocities that happen. So now among adversity and atrocity, which is more difficult to bear? Atrocity. Because if we can put a face to whatever is causing us, we start thinking, how do you do this to me? No, why do you act like that? So atrocities are much more difficult to bear. Similarly, if you consider from a positive side, we can have fortune in terms of good fortune. Let's make this the other way. There is good fortune, and then there is a benefactor. So if you just win a lottery, that's a good fortune. But if we need to start some business and somebody gives us money, somebody invests in our project, or somebody starts a scholarship and gives a scholarship, then what happens is actually good fortune, that's wonderful. But if somebody helps us, that is much more morale boosting. We have our faith in the goodness of humanity, in the goodness of people. Not everyone, at least some people are good still. Some people won't be there. So where we see human agents, our emotions become involved much more, both in the positives and the negatives. So when people, this point of persistence we're talking about here, what the karma worldview helps us understand is that when something seems to be happening which is disproportionate, especially when we get something bad when we have not done anything that bad, or we have not done anything bad at all, then life seems to be unfair. But if we are honest, we'll also see that sometimes good fortune comes in our life. So karma works both ways. So in terms of our dealing with situations and dealing with people, karma may determine the kind of people that come around us. Karma may determine that sometimes we come and stay in a hostel and we have a particular room partner. Now that room partner could be very helpful, that room partner could be very self-serving, that room partner could be exploitative, abusive, it could be various things. Now to some extent we can choose. Maybe if we find out that some person is really a terrible person, then I don't want to stay with you, I don't know why. But whenever we relate, say we are working on a project with someone, to some extent we are taking a leap in the dark. We don't really know how that person is going to be. What then to speak of when we try to form a long-term relationship. So the point is that by our karma, that by karma means by the karma baggage that we have from the past. The word karma is referring to here the results of the past karma that are stored and that come by a delayed effect to us. That may determine the kind of people that come around us. So, in that sense, karma may determine the range of people that are around us. Sometimes some people are just born in a bad neighborhood. Then, what happens is, most of the people around them might be rough people, might be harsh people, might be violent people. And that's difficult. Some people are born in a good neighborhood. And for them, little people around them may be more trustworthy, more kind, more helpful. So karma may determine the kind of people that we face. However, the kind of person we become, that is not determined by our karma. That is, by not even by karma means not by our past karma. So I want to meet some good person. You all may want to be friendly with good person, people, have a long relationship with good people. I want to be with someone good. Now, that is not really in our control. But I want to become someone good. That is in our control. So, our present actions are entirely up to us. It is we who choose how we will act. So, suppose by some past karma baggage, negative karma baggage coming out to us. So we are living in a new city, a different place from it, and there is someone whom we trust and that person betrays us. It's terrible. But if overall we have been kind and friendly and cordial with others, when that person betrays us, others will be there to help us. No, this is a bad thing that happened to you. I will let you. But if we have also been mean or self-serving or arrogant, then when that person betrays us, we will be abandoned. So when I say the point of persist means what? That karma, the worldview of karma, I said we all want to make sense of life. The way karma helps us to make sense of life is that our actions matter. Even when they don't seem to. Even when they don't seem to. That, I was so kind and nice to this person. And still this person betrayed me. What is the use of being kind and nice? No, our actions matter. That person may have abandoned us, but our being a nice person will always be. So there is the entirety of the session or major part of the session. I will summarize in this 4-quadrant diagram. There is our present karma, and then there is our past karma. Now our present karma can be positive, and our past karma can be positive. Our past karma can be negative, and our present karma can be negative. So now, if a present karma is positive and the past karma is positive, that is the best situation to be. That means I am a nice and friendly and helpful person, and if my past karma is positive, I also meet somebody who is nice and friendly and helpful. And then we can have a good relationship. I find myself in that kind of people. And I can have trustworthy friends, those who will be lifelong friendships are forged through that. So if this is the situation, this is the best situation to be. Now, if my present karma is negative, that means I am mean and exploitative, and my past karma is also negative. What happens is, I also meet people who are mean and exploitative. Now, this is a dark situation. Like sometimes two people have a small argument, and from that small argument, first person becomes angry and punches the other person. The second person punches the first person, and the first person takes out the knife. The second person takes out the gun. And a small issue escalates. Now, we may not take out knives and guns. On social media, we have the digital equivalent of knives and guns. We can spread rumors about others. We can gossip about others. And there can be physical assassination and there can be character assassination. So this is the darkest situation to be, in one sense. Let me keep it dark right now. Let's see if it is darkest. But now, there's sometimes gossip happens. For gossip to happen, two things have to work together. That generally we gossip when we hear something we like. There are so many things we hear. We hear something we like about someone we don't like. So, this person acts as if still such a nice, great person they are. I never liked them. And now I know who they really are. In public interest, I tell you. So, sometimes we might be gossipy, sometimes somebody else might be gossipy. And they might take truths and just when we try and share them. They might take truths and embellish them, exaggerate them. And they can spread them around. Or they can just come up, fabricate downright lies. And they can spread them. So, sometimes what happens is, for us, our karma, if let's consider this particular situation, our past karma is positive and our present karma is negative. Now this is where, to use very refined language, people become jerks. That means what happens is, that person is doing bad things, but nothing seems to be happening to them. They betray this person and they trick this person and they abandon that person and they backbite against that person, and still they seem to be going forward. So what is happening is their present karma is negative, but because they have a past karma phase of positivity, so they are not getting any results of their actions. So it's like, going back to the earlier diagram, it's like they might be doing 100 negative, but they might, 100 might be negative, but they might have 150 that is positive. And we might see that they still have a 50 positive. Oh, there's such terrible people, but still their reputation is so good. Now, this is actually living dangerously. And living dangerously is not in the positive sense of being adventurous. It is being foolhardy. If we are in a situation, sometimes we might be exploitative, we might be abusive, hopefully none of us are like that, but we might be seem to be getting away with it. But we're not getting away with it actually. It's just that there is that positive karma phase. So sometimes the person around us, that person may be in that phase, and that's why they will be doing terrible things to us, and they will seem to be getting away with it. But the thing is, they are creating a dark future for themselves. It's like, say, somebody jumps up from a first story building. But they can, if they're skillful, they can land on their feet. They jump down from a first story building. No, they can, if they're lucky, they will not enjoy themselves too much. If somebody gets into a helicopter and jumps down from the helicopter, now to crash down in the helicopter may take some time. And during that time, if they are not looking at the ground, it's a nice ride. I'm listening of the wind in my ears. So the higher we go, the harder we fall. But the longer it may take to reach the fall. And during that time, the person may have an illusory sense, oh, everything is fine. So actions will have results. We people will eventually have to bear the consequences. But for us, when I talk about persist, it could be in this situation, this quadrant. That we are being a nice person, but the people around us have not been so nice. So at that time, what happens is, if we can learn to persist, this is a negative phase. Now, persist doesn't necessarily mean we have to persist in that particular relationship with that particular person. No, if somebody is being abusive, somebody is manipulative, we can keep a distance from them. But we don't lose faith in the principle that let me try to be a good person. But there's a difference between being nice and being naive. We want to be nice in the sense of being to be polite, courteous, but not naive. Naive is being critically and uncritically trusting. We will be hurt, we will be exploited that way. But so our aspiration could be that I want to meet someone nice. And we all would like to meet somebody, a good person. But this depends on our past karma. But I want to become someone nice. This is within our control. This is our present karma. This is something which we can try to do. Now, how can we know whether I am becoming someone nice? One way to understand it is that how peaceful can we be in our own company? Now, this doesn't mean that we dislike others. So this will be the last point. So P was persist. Now the last part is T, that one app. T is transcend. Now transcend means that we normally, the way we live in the world, there are two values. There is the value of liberty, freedom, autonomy, we value that. And there is the value of equality. And we value that also. But actually, there is a tension between these two. Nature itself is not equal. Nature as biology has not studied at the American Declaration of Independence. So, biologically, different people are different. Some people are taller than others, some people are fitter than others, some people are smarter than others. If there were complete liberty, the society would not have equality, isn't it? Nature is governed by survival of the fittest. When we use the word fittest, that means there is no equality. There are some people who are fitter than others. So the thing is that for the world we live in, we may implicitly accept the idea of equality. But there is no material metric on the basis of which we can actually claim equality. In terms of height, in terms of weight, in terms of any measurable parameter we do. Everyone is different. IQ level, everyone is different. Income level, people are different. So we are all different. And yet, there is a part of us which accepts that everybody should be respected, everybody should be valued. So on what basis is this equality to be founded? Actually, if we stick to the material level of equality, we say, okay, we all belong to the human species, and that's why we're all. But then, the human species, like any other species, is also operating based on survival and survival of the fittest. So, we can say, okay, all our chromosomes are the same. I somewhat say, okay, but at a functional level, there is difference. So the longing for equality actually points to a deeper reality, points to our spirituality. That there is, we all seek self-worth. Now we can seek self-worth extrinsically, or we can seek self-worth intrinsically. Extrinsically means that if I go, okay, how much do people respect me? If I come into a room, how many heads turn to this? If I post something on social media, how many likes do I get? For many people, their self-worth may be equal to their net worth. Now this is very extrinsic. Now we live in a world where there is competition and extrinsic evaluation matters. Some people say, I don't care what you think about it. But then they will write that on their t-shirt and they want us to know. I don't care. I don't care what you think about me. But I care that you know that I don't care. So nobody can live in a complete cocoon. So there will be a certain level of extrinsic evaluation that will happen. And we can't avoid that. But if that extrinsic evaluation and the extrinsic source is the sole source of our self-worth, then we will always go toward two extremes. See, often we think of, there are people who have ego. What is the opposite of ego? Somebody doesn't have ego, what would you describe that person? Humble, yes. So normally we think of ego and humility to be opposites. When there is some truth to that, it's a partial reality. Actually, it's a pendulum. Ego is on one side and insecurity is on the other side. And in between the two is humility. Ego claims that I know everything, I can do everything, I am everything. Insecurity makes us believe I can do nothing, I know nothing, I am nothing. So often, based on the kind of people we are with, we oscillate between ego and insecurity. If we are with someone who is smarter than us, we start feeling insecure. If we are with someone that we are smarter than them, then we start feeling superior. And now, to some extent, from functional perspective, we have to evaluate. If we have to get a job done, and can I do the job better or can they do the job better? So that extrinsic evaluation cannot be rejected. But when that becomes the basis of our identity, we just keep oscillating. Sometimes we feel great about ourselves, sometimes we feel terrible about ourselves. But what the yoga tradition tells us is, there is a core to us that is spiritual, that is indestructible, that is inviolable. And that is divine. That is a part of the Supreme Divinity. And when we do practices like meditation, then we start connecting with that divinity within us. And then that gives us a sense of intrinsic self. Whether people respect me or not, there is a higher reality with which I can connect. And to the extent we connect with that higher reality, see, if I am here, you are here, and there is a higher spiritual reality. So transcend means this connection becomes strong for us through our personal spiritual growth, where we understand that there is a core of spirituality, core of divinity, core of something inviolable and indestructible within me. This brings us stability. This helps us to have intrinsic self-worth. And then when we are relating with others, we can relate on a much sounder platform. When we don't have this intrinsic self-worth coming from spiritual growth, then what others think of us becomes what we think about ourselves. And then others' actions. So when we are going through a phase of negative karma, then say people let us down, people abandon us, people reject us, we may start thinking, maybe there's something wrong with it. Nobody will ever care about it. To feel unwanted or unloved is a terrible thing. But to feel not just unloved, but to feel unlovable, that is an unbearable reality. So ultimately, when we transcend the duality of relationships by having this higher connection, this higher spiritual connection, which helps us experience security and satisfaction within ourselves, then we have a stable foundation by which we can relate to others. And ultimately the karma, the choice that we have is, we all want social growth. We all want to increase our influence in society. We want to have a lot of friends and we want to have a lot of influential friends. But For us, growth, we all seek social growth, but more important than that is spiritual growth. It's much, much more important. If we seek to grow spiritually, then we will have inner stability. And in the social landscape, sometimes there will be ups, sometimes there will be downs. But we will be less shaken by those ups and downs. And that's how we can become someone who is worth being with, who is nice. So when there are ups and normally if we are with someone and we find that they are very shaken by ups and downs, this is not a reliable person. But if we become reliable and others see, hey, this person went to such a bad phase, but still they are so strong. This is the person I'd like to be with. This is the person I want to become like this person. So when we prioritize spiritual growth, when we transcend the extrinsic self-worth that comes by how people treat us, by cultivating intrinsic self-worth. And paradoxically, when we focus on spiritual growth, our social growth will automatically follow. But if we focus on social growth, I have more relationship, more friends, and we don't focus on spiritual growth, then the social growth may come for some time while we are going through a good karma phase. But once a negative karma phase starts, then we find that we have nothing left. We have no extrinsic self-worth, and we are not cultivating the intrinsic self-worth. And that would be a very dark situation to be in. Fortunately, for all of us, we have the option to karma ultimately means that we have the sense of agency. We all have the capacity to choose. And to choose right now to seek our spiritual growth first through we chanted as Om mantra, deep breathing, meditation. We choose to cultivate intrinsic self-worth, which is to grow spiritually. And then with that foundation we grow socially, and we find that we can create the brightest possible future for ourselves. Whatever our karma baggage may hold for us from our past. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Our topic was karma and relationships. So I talked about three main points. First was, what is the acronym you remember? A. A was accept. So accept what? Accept that, there is the cause effect principle, that action result. So we talk about how normally, if I do good, others does good. If I am nice, others will be nice. This cause effect principle, that is how, for a child, understanding that is a significant phase in their growth. And for humanity also through science, we grew intellectually by understanding this principle. So normally, we need to accept this principle, and we do accept it to some extent. But the problem is, when we look at the world, there seems to be order, and there seems to be disorder also. So sometimes when we are nice, other people are nice with us, but sometimes we are nice, other people are not nice with us. So to make sense of this disorder, we need to persist. So when there's disorder, what happens is, when faced with disorder, we can go to two extremes. That now I am a loser. That something is wrong with me, and because of which I end up with people whatever. Or just the world stinks. Life itself is terrible. But instead, we can look for the bigger picture. So to persist, what is the bigger picture? That sometimes I may be being good, but I might not be getting good result because I might be going through a negative karma phase. So if I persist, then the result will come eventually. So we discussed these four quadrants about present negative karma and past negative karma. So it is important that if we are in the quadrant where both are good, that's the best to be in. Now, both of these are bad, where we are doing negative karma And if we have positive karma, then we can be terrible people ourselves. We can cause terrible harm to ourselves and to others. And here we will be in a bad situation. Now this is where we need to persist. And say persist. Persist doesn't mean that we simply keep persisting in the same relationship not working. It means that we persist in the principle. So we persist in our endeavors. The persist I talk about is I want find someone nice. That's what we all would like. But instead, what I want to do is persist in I want to become someone nice. I want to become someone good. That is in our choice. So this is based by past karma. We can't control that. But our present karma determines whether we can become someone nice. And the last part was how do we persist during the situation when we are going through negative karma fields. That's where he was transcendent. Now if we all need a sense of self-worth, if our self-worth is coming from extrinsic sources, then we will oscillate between ego and insecurity. When people are praising us, oh, I am a great person. When people neglecting us, I am worthless. But when we cultivate intrinsic self-worth, then we can have humility. Humility means, yeah, I am not perfect, but I have a core divinity within me, the divine spark within me. And therefore, there is a inviolable self-worth. And when we understand that, then what happens is, we, through our spiritual practices, we cultivate a bond with the higher reality. This is we prioritize spiritual growth above social growth. And then we can, by pursuing both in balance, we can navigate the negative phases of karma that we may have to go through. But eventually, we will come to a bright future. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone. Thanks, and we like to thank sir for coming here and giving us this talk. So it was quite an enlightening session where we got to know regarding karma and relationships. And